Um, so I'm a professor of political science also. And so the way Sweden works is you get credit for a range of different classes. I mean, class credits, if you want. But really, there are a number of things that are fun about Sweden. Usually, we're about 15 to 18 students. And I'll go around to all the big classes and recruit. There are several different ways that people look at study abroad. One is the kind of thing that appeals to, let's say, parents. Parents go like this, oh, Oxford, or something like this, or like Paris, right? Like this. That's fine for students. And also if you know, if you travel with your parents and your parents, like this, like kind of the European trip and stuff like this, there's a way you look at it where it's established standard places to go. And Sweden is not like that. Sweden is actually one of those places that's rare to go, both with family and also then on your own. It's really, really expensive. The only place that's more expensive, I think, than Sweden in Europe is probably Switzerland. Um, so I did my PhD there. My mom is Swedish. I'm from Oakland, California originally. I've been in Alabama for 17 years. I'm definitely one of those professors that like gets his students into the best grad schools and all that, like rah rah rah, like this, right? Um, I have a huge following of students in the Greek system that are like, like this, like very active, very supportive of students. And so what you end up doing is you spend a month with me and my partner, my wife Elizabeth, who's from Homewood, Alabama, right? And you kind of run around in one of the most beautiful cities in the world. There's no question about it. I've traveled a lot, and I think the only place that compares, maybe Hong Kong, Prague as the dirty Paris, things like this. But it's like 13, 14 islands where everything is built on those islands. And so you're taking little ferries around. And we spend 4 weeks just running around to museums and talking about culture. And we talk about the politics of, the monarchy, et cetera, the organization of government. Sweden is structured very differently than the US in terms of how the government works. And of course, it's a place for a really strong women's rights, gender equality position, but it's also very strong on environment. There are issues of immigration, so we'll talk about that. Social democracy has been really the standard there for the last 5 or 6 decades, let's say, a little bit more actually. And so it means that over time, social engineering, the way the society has sort of supported development, is very different. And so we'll talk about all that. You'll go to the food markets, so the reason why I'm saying this is, so there are different types of programs, and Sweden is one of those where it's just fun. It's just fun. And what you do is you learn by walking around the city, as opposed to you're not in a classroom. The classroom is the city. And we go to the castles, we go to the sunken Vasa ship, we go to all these funky art museums, we go to the largest collection of Viking gold in the world, things like this. And so, I talk you through it, you do little projects and stuff. But the emphasis is on really learning by, we're not embedding ourselves, obviously, you don't speak Swedish, right? But you're kind of immediately thrown out into the society in a way by the way we do it. Like you're interacting with people right away. This is land of the midnight sun, which means, every day at about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock at most, depending on how long our field trips, we go to like Uppsala, these big cities and stuff also outside of Stockholm, right? But every day at about 3, maybe 4, you're kind of free. Meals are included at the facility on purpose because of how expensive it is, right? It would be prohibitively expensive if we didn't have all the meals in the program, right? But about 4 o'clock, then you're free, and so it's midnight sun. So how light it is right now outside, I don't know if you're trapped in a little room with no windows, right? You can see behind me, right? This is about 10:30 at night in Stockholm in July, and at about 2:30 in the morning. So you have a few hours of kind of twilight. And so in the true Alabama party fashion, right, people enjoy themselves. So, it's a place where it's, you know, you're a first year student, you'll be actually between first and second year. Reed, what year are you?
I'm a senior.
A senior. So senior is
Yes.
a little different, you know, not more sophisticated than Morgan, obviously, right? But at the same time, there's a routine that Morgan by the end of this year will know flat out, right? The thing is, this is a real party city, right? Like this is where, you know, Taylor Swift and all the others have their concerts in July. You know, you're going to these concerts, you're out there hanging out at the bars and the clubs, you know, and so it's very good if you are routinized in these things rather than kind of swept up in all that. I mean, it's a great program. You know, we stay at the Swedish Olympic facilities for their athletes, and so you'll actually have like, you know, men's soccer team and all these people, you know, there on the site. We stay in very nice. You have your own little room. You have, you know, a bathroom and shower and all of this. It would probably be. Have the two of you been down to like Destin,
Yes,
someplace
sir.
like that? Yeah. So it's like it's not like the sort of Hilton complex, right? It's like one of the ones just below it, right? But your rooms are like perfect, and we have maid service every day, you know, turn down service. Like we're just not suffering at all. You have to take a small little bus ride. I will have a car so I can drive people around if necessary, right? But if you actually had a car, you won't be allowed to rent a car. If you had a car, the distance we actually are to downtown Stockholm is like just 5 minutes, right? And so we're on an island with the facilities. Is Lidingö, it's what it's called. You won't be able to pronounce it because there are two vowels in Swedish that don't exist in English, or right? Um, so Lidingö, yeah, means island. So Liding and then right? That's where like the band ABBA, the former members, all those people, like it's the elite island. And so we're surrounded by all these little swanky places, and it's just forest everywhere. That's why it's the Olympic facility. So you'll have everything from horseback riding and rowing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Crew type stuff, sailing. My kids will actually probably go to sailing camp again while we're there. So I have a 10, 11, and 13-year-old. They'll obviously be a year older, right, at that point. Um, it's really a lot of fun. I grew up going to Sweden from California every summer, so I'm very familiar with it. I lived there for 13 years. My family is an old noble in the Swedish noble court family for the last 300 years. So I'm very familiar with all the different aspects of, I have no idea what that is, that picture. Oh, that must be the archipelago. So we go out in the archipelago quite a bit. We're right on the edge in Lidingö, like the sort of ships going out into this. It's the second, I think Hong Kong has the largest archipelago. Stockholm has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of islands where people live, right? It's beautiful, like you saw briefly, right? I'm not doing that. That's being manipulated by Capstone International. I'm trying to ignore it and just look at the two of you. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you're used to your Zoom awkwardness now, right? Aren't you? You know what I mean? So I'm just like ranting on like a crazy person. Um, I'm really relaxed and fun. Obviously, I'm very helpful. Um, there's a difference though between the programs. Um, I think Sweden. What I like about Sweden is that you're probably never going to go there if you don't go on this type of program, right? Or you'll go there when you retire, whenever, you know what I mean, right? Okay. Oh, there we go. That's different. um, you know, you'll probably be like, we're always about 15 students. We're always about half women and men. Sometimes I've had as many as 7 deeks on the program, but usually we have, it's usually like half sorority, half not. Like sort of, you get a few people from Mallet Assembly, you know, like this, a few like left and right and middle. I'm very neutral in that stuff as a political science professor. I mean, one of the benefits you get is you're spending time with me and my partner, who's a professor also in women's studies. Um, and then we help you out everything from applications to law school to grad school, et cetera, et cetera. We're really good at that. Obviously, Morgan and Reed, we're talking right now, or I'm talking at you. So if you had any questions that have nothing to do with Sweden, and you were just like, hey, what about my future? And I would be like, I will help you. Like this, right? This is so early in the recruitment. This is the first time I even talk about Sweden for this coming year. I usually am not recruiting until like November, December. I'm one of the late people. And I've never had a problem filling up, right? So, but this is what you'd think of as a kind of an elite program in a way. Like it's not the most popular in terms of numbers are Spain and Italy, right? And so that's the other type of program is language programs, right? You get language programs, and then you get those programs where people want to say, and really said this, I don't think Reed was in there, where your parents are like, I want you to go to England. I want you to go to Paris. And so what I don't like about those programs, the competition in that sense for the Sweden program, is that you're probably going to go there anyway. You know what I mean? Like, how many times can you go to Paris? Yes, it's great. I spent a lot of time in Paris. It's great. You go to Oxford. That's great. You know, you want to go there for grad school? You talk to Dr. McKnight. I will help you. Like this, right? I had plenty of students who go. Plenty of students. It's actually really easy to come with a BA from UA to then go to schools in England, right? It's actually really, really easy. So one of the things you get by going and doing international abroad is you get that sense of an international program experience. And so I remember I haven't asked the two of you what you do. You probably are like children of US ambassadors. And so you're like, it's a routine. Like how boring. Like this, right? But we kind of send our students very successfully all over the place for grad school, right? Abroad, it's very, very simple process. One of the things about Sweden is that Swedes start learning English at about the age of 6. And so they're fluent, even though you'll hear Swedish all around you. In fact, they will be fluent. They will understand everything that you say. So it's a kind of weird moment, right? They break into Swedish and you're like, are they talking about me? And I'm like, yeah, they are. Like this, right? You know, it's one of the sort of, you know, highest standard of living places. The two of you are easily a match for it. You know what I mean? In terms of being able to kind of hold your own with people. Americans are really, really, unlike in some places, even now, Americans are exotic and fun, especially coming from Alabama, right? Like people will be like, oh, how weird. Do you have shoes? And you'll be like, yes. You see my feet right here? See the shoes? Like this, right? I'm joking about it a little bit, but it's very easy. At the same time, it's intense. So every day after breakfast, except for some days, I'll kind of give you guys a break, but otherwise every day after breakfast, about 8:45, we'll take the little subway in, right? It's very quick, and we'll be downtown and we'll do 2 or 3 museums. Or we'll do a little treasure hunt where I say, you got to find this small little statue of St. George and the Dragon there, and you got to find another one here and another one there, and you'll be in little teams, you know, just for fun, things like this. But it's also a chance to talk about, you know, how culture, politics, and then social behaviors are different. Sweden is very different. It's a matriarchal society. And so it means that women rule socially. So I don't know if you've been, let's say, at Innisfree or, well, right now you can't do anything. But, you know, let's hypothetically, you could see yourself at Rounders or someplace like this, hypothetically, right? Glory Bound or something. And you would look up and you would see these men kind of like staring at you really rudely, right? In Sweden, it's the reverse. So the men sit there like this, like this, and men are not socially, men will not approach you unless you either signal that you want them to, or you approach them. So it's really empowering for women. It really is. Like, it's amazing how much more confident, and also the sense of resisting an American passivity that's built in. Remember, this is not political. It's not left and right. It's like just straightforward. You can't. It's not a left-wing woman who's like this, right? Like Sweden is just built that way. I don't know if you've seen some of these like little Viking shows on TV. Have you ever looked at those? Okay. Well, there's one in the show Viking where in the beginning where there are two men who come on the sort of homestead, and the woman goes ahead and chops them up essentially, right? The Swedish tradition has always been matriarchal, right? So the extra men would go off and be Vikings. And so the problem with the show is that, in fact, women were not just shield maidens, like they both had the keys to the homestead and they ran it. And the men were considered superfluous. Like women are in charge, right? Like this. So that has been the tradition for a long, long time, right? So that still remains. There's a lot of gender politics. There's a lot of inequality. It just looks different, right? So that allows us to talk about it, right? But socially, it means that it's very different when you're out there. And so you have a lot of fun, right? I don't know who's around you in your environments as I talk this way, so I won't talk about, the drinking and everything like this, And so, like, obviously there's no drinking. Swedes drink more than the Russians, right? Like this. But I won't actually talk that way at all because, you probably have your parents sitting right there going like this, right? Joking about it a little bit, but in a serious way, there's lots of entertainment, right? There's a very different view on intimate relationships as well. And so, it's good that we're like number one or number two as a party school, right? Because you kind of just have fun, right? What you want to do if you feel like doing it is most people bring their friends along. You have 2 or 3 people. Like I said, I'm not really recruiting right now. I mean, I am, but like the real recruitment, like you can see how my pitch would be. Like I'd be like, rah, rah, go, 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 right? Like this. That'll be November, December. You might actually see me in your class, come in on Zoom and go, hey, come to Sweden. But it's just relaxing. There's, of course, in June, a lot of people do internships, right? A lot of people, if you're graduating, Reed, you probably will already have like at least an initial thing back home or something. You'll be doing something. And then July is just a vacation and a present, essentially. And you can get credit for it afterwards. You can come if you've already graduated. It's not a problem, right? And you just kind of take advantage of a really beautiful place. Like really beautiful, lots of fun. And you're also very much a sort of core group. Like the Alabama students kind of hanging out together. We usually have 2 or 3 students who are not Alabama. They come from like Virginia or something like Georgetown. And yeah, I guess it's just 4 weeks of kind of fun and relaxation. It's intense, but I don't require any books because instead we can get stuff off the internet, certainly. But actually, in fact, it's over time. I used to when I first began the program. I've been doing it since like 2005 or something like this, right? When I first began, I had like texts that people would read and we would talk in our little seminar room. There are classrooms on site because, of course, it's a training facility, right? And there's a large cafeteria, and it's better than Bama dining. No worries, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess that's about it. I think that the cost of the program is probably going to be about $6,500, so it's high, right? We come in, we're just under Oxford, for example. We're a top in terms of expense. There are very small scholarships available, like really small, like $500, right? But this is one of those times when it really, I don't know how the two of you feel about study abroad, and I'm about to ask you questions. Okay? I don't know how you feel about study abroad, but most of the students who go to the Sweden program say it's the best thing they've done since they've been in Alabama, which says a lot about how they feel about Alabama. But Most of the students are really good students. Not all, like I don't have a grade requirement in that way, because it's really about intellect and creativity, force of personality. And so I don't care if you're a 2.5 GPA student or an A student, because it kind of equalizes itself. I mean, we know how this is in real life, right? But we tend to get a lot of student leaders, and the students after the program tend to go on to grad school. I've had a whole bunch go to like Edinburgh, and places like, London School of Economics and stuff like this afterwards, because they want to go into afterwards, they want to try and experience that. I've only had a few students who do programs in Sweden afterwards, but everybody benefits from it. So, Reed and Morgan. Reed, where are you from?
I'm from Mississippi, Columbus.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Wait, isn't there a university in Columbus?
There is. It's the W University for Women.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. That's right. Sorry, Chair of Gender and Race Studies. What is that stuff? Oh, that's not I like this.
Yes.
Morgan, where are you from?
I'm from Dothan, Alabama.
Okay, excellent. Dothan is the place I go to on my way to the beach to St. George Island.
Yeah, that's what everyone said.
But I've had a really good friend who's from Dothan, who went on to run the Bush Library in Texas. Actually, she was a KD sorority woman, long time ago. No, I think, what are the two of you looking for? Like, obviously, like the first program in political science was the Sweden program. And since then, there've been like 5 or 6 different programs coming out of political science. So I'm really a good resource for you about talking about other programs too. Like I said, I'm not really, I would love to have you sign up for Sweden and all like this, but I haven't even created the budget yet, to be honest. But, but I know it's going to be about 6,500. But I don't mind talking generally about programs also. What are your majors? Morgan, what's your major?
I'm undecided, but I'm looking at either political science or international relations.
Okay, good. And it's the same department. I've been director of international relations at one point, international studies. But really, I'm a political theorist, right? So I was at Cal Berkeley before coming, UC Berkeley before coming here. That's like 17 years ago now. I'm very familiar with Alabama at this point, right? And I'm kind of like, because you're a first year student, I'm kind of like the type of professor you probably, I'm different than you had in high school, right? But I'm really nice and really supportive. I really am. And I think that's my mission, is to teach and help. And that's why I came to Alabama. And like I said, I expect my students to go to Yale or Cal or Stanford. And I'm successful. Right? So, whatever your ambition is, what I would do is I would support you. It doesn't have to do with Sweden, right? I'm just making sure, because you're a first semester student with COVID and everything like that. There are lots of people like me. And I am in political science. I'm a full professor in political science. I have an office in Tenor and all that. So if you need support having nothing to do with Sweden, let me know. Okay? Yeah. Reed, what about you? What's your major?
I'm an music education major, and I'm on the choral music side of things.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm a singer.
Wow.
Yes.
Morgan and I bow down to you, obviously.
Oh, well,
Actually, Morgan is like this. Morgan's like, I can beat you. I'm superior.
that's nice of y'all. Yes.
So what are you going to do afterwards?
Well, it just depends.
You can afford it. If you want something that will challenge you, definitely challenge you socially. Because Swedes, as you can guess, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, intimidatingly beautiful, right? Looking at you going, hi, you're American. Wow. And you're like, crap, now what do I say? Right? Like this, right? So you'll have a kind of weird moment of like, like this, right? You'll grow and develop yourself, and it will be a really intense month though. But at the same time, the reason why I say about grad school and all that is I kind of have high expectations that my students are really creative and smart, right? Alabama is, for me, the same as UC Berkeley in terms of students. You're really smart. Sure, we have a reputation as a party school, but you can party and study. You know, that has proven true for me in 17 years, right? Like my students are everywhere from, of course, Emory, Vandy, and Tulane, right? Of course, but they're also at Yale, Princeton, Harvard, or the UC. So that means that you're capable of going to a place like Sweden, having fun for a month, and getting into all sorts of interesting sort of dilemmas, social dilemmas, but also asking questions about the culture and what a monarchy does and what social democracy is, and also the connection EU and Sweden in the EU, right? And also then everything from food culture to, schooling, how is schooling run? And we'll talk about all that stuff. So but it's different than, because I spent so much time there, and my mom is Swedish and I speak Swedish. This program is very different than a lot of the other programs in that I will actually give you questions to take to the bars in the evening, the first night, be like, ask these questions. Like what I'll do is one of the first questions I'll say, ask them if they have gone to the university. And you'll find that 90% of the people sort of your age are not at the university, right? And so that leads to this question of, a very different society, whereas it's strange here for us, right? For people like you not to go to the university. Not everybody does, but it's a different type of person who doesn't, right, in Sweden. So in Sweden, it's very, very hard to get in the university. It's like a very strict pyramid structure, right? So it allows me to talk about that. Like the next day when we're sitting there walking around the city, and we'll go to Stockholm University and we'll go to Uppsala University and see these old sort of medieval and also modern universities. And I'll talk about the relationship then, like of a university to the society. You see how that would work? Like I would kind of talk you through it, and we walk through and I say, these are particular types of students. So as opposed to, for us, you all have a much broader social economic range. In Sweden, only the elite would go to the university. And so it means when you say in the bar, well, I'm a university student and I think I want to do like choral music. And you'll notice that people will be, I promise you this, they will be like, oh, and they'll be like, oh, that's the elite. Like this, right? That's okay. I'm just saying, that's okay. But that will allow us to talk about that, right? And also in reference to how we live, right? And that's what I mean. It will be transformative because you'll be confronted with, what are you really doing in your studies? And you'll have graduated, having studied at UA. What are you really looking for as a person? What are your ambitions, right? Why are you doing this? And choral music is unique. I mean, obviously you're doing it because it gives you a type of life.